I set out on a quest to beat Pokemon Violet using only one single move. Tackle. That's right, the most basic and weak move that gets slapped on half of the Pokedex as baby's first move is what I'll be using to challenge the entire Pokemon League in Pokemon Violet. And let me tell you, it was not easy. And this is the story of that journey. For starters, see what I did there? Fuecoco is the only starter this generation that can learn Tackle, so atop my shoulder he went, and it was off to face Nemona, our rival, for our first battle. It was a very narrow victory, but Nemona basically just gave up, so I think that fight is kind of scripted to where you literally can't lose. But after that, we went and caught our newest squad member, Tackle Susan the Lechonk. And with our two little buddies in tow, it was time to train. We slowly, very slowly, whittled away at our opponents, and it started to set in how arduous and tough this playthrough was going to be. And then, it was time to fight Nemona. Again, already. And yeah, it didn't go so well this time. This fight is one I can guarantee you can lose. We enter into the big, sprawling city of Mesagoza, and immediately have to fight against Team Star, which is literally the one and only time you will see me fight them this run, because to protect my own sanity, I'm only fighting the gym leaders, Elite Four, and the champion Gita, and I am not even going to bother with the Arven and Team Star storylines. After Cutscene City, we were finally released into the sprawling open world of Paldea to go find a new squad member, when we promptly picked up Tackle Sarah, the Shinx, and Tackle Matt, the Makuhita. Knowing these two had really good attack stats, and also pretty good abilities with Intimidate and Guts, I knew they'd be invaluable to the team. For our first fight as a team of 4, I let everyone get wiped out by a Drifloon, because we can't hit ghost types. There is a solution to that, but more on that later. And like a total noob, I went and fought the gym leader Katie really early, thinking, oh, she's pretty weak, she's just the first gym leader, and I got wiped out again. So I trained everybody up, evolved Sarah, and recruited a couple new team members in Tackle Fido, the Mashchief, and Tackle Stan, the Starly. And after all that, the fight was still insanely difficult. I mean, we barely made it out alive. Since Tackle is just too weak to one-shot the Teddiursa, it had the chance to just keep on building Fury Cutters and start just one-shotting my whole team. So I had to cycle Intimidate until Teddiursa's damage output was a little bit more akin to an actual teddy bear. And we finally got ourselves our very well-earned first gym badge. And then it was straight to Artisan to fight Brassius, the second gym leader, where along the journey, we got our very first one-hit knockout of the run, which says quite a lot about this. Also, a bunch of our squad members evolved, which had me really feeling confident for this next battle. So we lagged our way through a bunch of Sunflora and began our fight against Mr. Bold and Brassius. My strategy was just doing as much damage as possible with Terranormal Susan, our newly evolved Oinkologne, and let me tell you, it worked so much better than I ever could have imagined. Petalil and Smoliv were near one-hit KOs. And then, of course, as it's scripted, Sudowoodo terrestrialized into Grass type, getting rid of its resistance to normal, and making it just so much easier for me. Sudowoodo still has pretty high defense, but it was just no match for Terranormal Susan, who swept the entire fight. This was a far cry from the struggle of the first fight. I never would have guessed it after she wasn't really able to do much in the first gym or the whole early game, but Tackle Susan had started to become the MVP of this run, because after hogging, get it, a ton of experience points, she swept through the next Nemona fight with a vengeance, and then made very quick work of Iono's gym trainers. But the actual fight with Iono was a little bit more of a challenge. Waltra was easy enough to get rid of, and Bellybolt gave us some trouble with some para hacks, so I had to switch to Sarah for the electric resistance, and eventually took it down. I then decided I had to sacrifice Stan to get the Intimidate off on her Luxio, and then heal Susan back up to get the 2-hit KO. And then Miss Maggie's came out, and unlike Brassius, who just threw away a resistance, Iono gave up the immunity, but that still unfortunately didn't make it easy. It used Confuse Ray, and Susan hit herself in confusion. And while I was using that turn to heal up, she used Charge Beam and got the boost. At this point I was very scared of getting swept, but Susan clutched up and managed to do a huge amount of damage. Iono missed the Charge Beam, and then Susan barely missed the kill with a low roll. So we healed back up to full. She got another special attack boost, into Confuse Ray, into getting hit in confusion, But with that much bad luck in one turn, I knew my luck was bound to turn around. So risking the confusion chance, I went for the killing blow, and what do you know? Susan snapped out of it, and we won the battle. With no time to waste, we started training again for the next gym, and along the way, we stumbled upon this Terra Normal Gumshoos Den. This was an incredible find because Terra Den Pokemon have a chance to have their hidden ability, and Gumshoos' hidden ability is Adaptability, which turns stab from a 1.5 times boost to a double boost. And miraculously, it's still Terra Normal. So after barely winning the solo raid, it did turn out to have Adaptability, and Tackle Jeff was inducted onto our squad. But he was a little overleveled, so we decided to put him in the box just for now. In the meantime, Matt evolved into Hariyama, we did some gambling for some seaweed, and took on gym leader Kofu. My personal favorite gym leader this gen. We made very, very quick work of Wugtrio and Veluza, thanks to the pickup of the Metronome item, which made each consecutive hit stronger. Perfect for just spamming tackle. But I underestimated his Crabominable. I thought it was probably just really slow because of those tiny little legs. So Susan got outsped and taken out. So it was back to our tried and true, spamming Intimidate, and slowly chipping away, thanking Game Freak that gym leaders don't use potions in this generation. And after a few minutes of tackling, Sarah dealt the killing blow. Now, with our team leveled up, we could finally add Jeff to the squad. And from the box, he brought a little friend with him. Remember when I said I had a strategy to beat ghost types? Here it is. The ability Scrappy lets the Pokemon hit ghost types with normal and fighting type moves. And there is one single Pokemon in this game that gets that ability and the move Tackle at the same time. Hisuian Decidueye. And it's its hidden ability. So it was a very, very long-winded process of getting a hidden ability Hisuian Decidueye into Pokemon Violet, which involved breeding a regular Decidueye from another copy of the game I had that was already beaten, Pokemon homing it to Legends Arceus, and then back again, and then trading it over to the copy I'm using for this run. Does this feel like cheating? Yes. Kinda. Is this somehow the most convenient way to be able to hit ghost types? Yes. The only other option I could think of was hunting down a Pixelate Sylveon, but I was not going to spend hours checking for Raid Den EVs just for a chance to have a hidden ability. So instead we have Tackle Mugen to be our sole ghost type slayer. Like I said, I was never able to find a Terradin with a hidden ability EV or Sylveon in it, but I found this Passimian, which is a Pokemon I really like, and knowing it would have Terra Normal would help a lot. And after he crushed me on my first attempt, and saw that he had his really good hidden ability, Defiant, I knew I had to have this guy. I also noticed that he was only using normal and fighting type moves. So I went and fetched a Grievard, evolved it into Houndstone, used that, and I was right. It couldn't touch a ghost type. So I beat the raid, caught him, and now Tackle Tommy was our newest member of the team. Oh yeah, and Sarah evolved into Luxray too. With a much, much stronger team in tow, we began our fight against everyone's favorite gym leader, Larry. We led with Jeff for some big damage, but had to switch to Susan because of Yawn, only to just get yawned again. So Susan took a nap while we pivoted to Jeff to dodge a slam and get the KO. For the Dunsparce, we switched into Sarah to get an Intimidate off, and tanked a super effective Drill Run. After a few hits, we switched back into Jeff, and he dodged another attack, but the next one hit, and he came close to fainting. So in an attempt to keep this a deathless fight, we switched to Maru or Houndstone to clean up the Dunsparce. With Staraptor coming in, I sent in Tommy to get a Defiant boost off of Intimidate, Terrasilize into Normal type to get rid of our flying weakness, and after a potion and a 3-hit KO, the gym badge was ours. Oh yeah, and we fought Nemona outside where she slaughtered our entire team, forced me to spam potions on Mugen, the only one that could tank a Terra Grass Flower trick, until she ran out of PP on it, and then once again finished the fight up with our rising star Tackle Tommy. Then we proceeded to sit through a bunch of cutscenes because Miraidon's big jump was required to get to Alfornata. I know Rhyme is technically Gym 6, but we're delaying that for now because since we only have one Pokemon that could do damage, my strategy was just to simply overlevel that one Pokemon by doing the next gym first. So Tommy and I trained ourselves, emotionally, to fight Tulip, and dear God, that was not enough training, we got destroyed. So we went back, tried again with an actual strategy this time, leading with Sarah to get an Intimidate off on her only physical attacker for Rigoraph that opened up. Also, right here is a stark reminder of what the gameplay was like whenever we weren't doing Terra Normal. It took the combined strength of Sarah, Tommy, and Jeff all just to take down Farigiraf. Then Jeff traded blows with the Gardevoir, unfortunately fainted to it. Maru hit like a stuffed animal, fainted too, and Susan finished it off. She also barely lived to a Spathra, and got a special defense drop. So things were not looking good. But she was still able to take it out, giving me the chance to switch to Sarah, who was sacrificed while Susan got healed up. It was at that moment though that I had an idea that would change the course of this run. To make it easier to live Florges' attack, I used an X special defense. So now, barring the crit, I could live tons of hits while slowly doing damage back at them. This strategy led to a huge victory on a gym we definitely weren't ready for. Next up, it was time to put the X item strategy to the test against Rhyme, but first, dear God, Nemona, will you please stop? Please have mercy on me, you killed almost my entire team. Anyways, as I was saying, it's time to test out our strategy. Finally, the rap battle against Rhyme was starting. This was a perfect opportunity for my strategy. I could attack with Mugen, and I can just use the other turn to dish out all my steroids. The first hit got Banette down to half, and realizing it wasn't doing much, I started targeting the Mimikyu instead. With a couple steroids in him and the crowds cheering, Mugen was almost able to KO the Houndstone. The crowd gave us a speed boost, and it was off to the races as we finished up the Houndstone, got DJ G-Rave absolutely schmoovin'. Rhyme took out her own Banette for us, and Jeff too. Sorry, buddy. And we one-shot the Toxtricity with our nearly max attack Decidueye. Mugen was the last one standing on this stage, which is a spotlight he totally deserved for being a fighting-type Pokemon that soloed a double-battle Ghost-type gym leader. Oh yeah, with only Tackle. So after claiming our gym badge, I noticed Maru was kind of dead weight. Pretty good one, huh? We picked up a Frigibax named Tackle Rick, because it sounds like Pickle Rick. And also because I knew he would have a monstrous attack stat when he was fully evolved. While we were atop Glaciado Mountain, we turned Gym 8, the most difficult gym, into an absolute cakewalk. We got an insane amount of boosts onto Jeff. For him to sweep Grusha's entire team, aside from Satitan just barely living. With the easiest 8th gym badge ever obtained in our hands, it was time to load up on X items for the Elite Four. After a quick normal encounter power sandwich and a massacre of Chanseys and Blissies. I also found out that Larry's Restaurant gives you a free Terra Normal change on one Pokemon, so we slapped that right onto Rick. At last, it was time to challenge the Elite Four and the champion with only Tackle. I breezed through Rekka's quiz and really realized that Katie, the first gym leader, was the one that we struggled with the most, which is not usually the case for any playthrough of any Pokemon game. After that, the first battle of the Elite Four was just as easy as the test. We took out the Wish Cache with Susan, but wanting our newcomer Rick to have some screen time, I sent him out against Camerupt, and with just one X attack and one Terra Normal, Rick fought off her entire team on his own, with the most trouble he had being only a couple status conditions. Next up was Poppy, a fight I was not looking forward to at all. Poppy is a Steel-type trainer, and of course, Steel resists normal. And not only that, most Steel-type Pokemon have insanely high defense stats. I led with Sarah to get the Intimidate off, did a little bit of damage, but quickly switched back out in order to save the Intimidate for later. We got a couple lucky misses, but were finally dealt a really big hit, and had to switch over to Jeff to finally get the kill. But my team was super weak for only having one Pokemon down. So it was back out to Sarah, who was sacrificed for the Intimidate, and then to Rick, who tanked a Body Press, thanks to the X defense, of course. However, Poppy evened the score with an Iron defense that also boosted Body Press's power. So I used a Dire Hit to try to crit through the defense boost, which worked, but it still wasn't nearly enough to kill. And of course, Corviknight got a critical hit of its own, which one-shot my full health Baxcalibur. And that threw this entire fight off the rails. With Terastallization now completely out of the picture, this just seemed doomed. However, I had an idea, at least for the Corviknight. If I can't kill a defense boosted Corviknight, I'll just let it do the work for me. I sent out Tommy to bait out the Brave Bird, and he took those hits like an absolute unit, while this big bird brought itself down. The fight was not over yet though. Bronzong came out next, and with it not really being an offensive Pokemon, I had plenty of opportunity to just set up a bunch of stat boosts. So Jeff took down the Bronzong, and Magnezone was up next, and knowing it's a special attacker, I decided to use a special defense this time. And why do I have 67 of these? Apparently, I accidentally bought 67 X special defenses while I was stocking up. So if anyone needs an X special defense, just let me know. Anyways, Jeff took out Magnezone, leaving only Tinkaton, who was doing laughable damage with Gigaton Hammer. The Play Rough crit really scared me for a second, but after a max potion and a couple hits, we finally took down Poppy, probably the hardest fight of this entire run. And now, it was time for Larry again. This time we led with Susan, who has really high natural special defense. So after one of our very many X special defenses, we were able to live 1,000,000 hits, which let us set up a bunch of attack and speed. In a final desperate attempt to kill Susan, Tropius landed a critical hit, but it still wasn't enough. Susan then took down Larry's entire team with only 1 tackle each. This was a full Susan sweep. Susan might be a pig, but she's my goat for this one. The final Elite Four member, Hassel, was up next. And knowing his lead is special attacking Noivern, of course, it was Susan to start out again. We used the next special defense, Frame 1, but Hassel just totally ignored that with the Super Fang. Then he tried Hyper Voice, and Susan is just anime protagonist levels of overpowered. So we upped our attack and speed again, and plowed through Dragalge, Flapple, and Haxorus. But his Baxcalibur narrowly survived and took out Susan with a Glaive Rush. Then, in perfectly anticlimactic fashion, my own Baxcalibur, Rick, came in and took down Hassel's Terra Dragon Baxcalibur with just a tackle. No boost, no Terra, just a regular old tackle to beat the final Elite Four member. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, it is time to face top champion Gita with only 1 move. Gita opens up with a Spathra, so I sent out Tommy to try to get the Defiant attack boost off of Lumina Crash's special defense drop. Unfortunately, the attack boost didn't help do nearly as much as I thought it would, and he only took it down to half health before unfortunately feigning. But Jeff cleaned up and managed to get the kill with just raw adaptability power. Avalugg came out next, and again, this is a defensive Pokemon, so it was another perfect opportunity to start setting up boosts on. Despite that, Body Press was still doing a lot, so I was able to cycle attack boosts and potions to get Rick all the way up to 4 times attack, Terra Normal, which still wasn't enough to one-shot the Avalugg. Rick eventually took it out though, and King Gambit was next, who we were only really able to do about quarter health damage to. So it was all the way to the moon to fully max out Rick's attack, which still wasn't enough to take out King Gambit. But we kept on fighting and took it out with a critical hit that totally mattered. And with Go-Goat next, we got a critical hit that absolutely mattered. Definitely. Veluza was next, and it stood 0 chance, of course. And it was time to defeat the final Pokemon of this run. Gita sent out her Ace Glamora, and in a 2-hit KO fashion, Tackle Rick, our mighty dragon, took it down. And he won us the run of a lifetime. If this run taught me anything, it's that in this game, if you just spam potions and X items, you can do pretty much anything. But more importantly, it shined the spotlight on some Pokemon that just don't normally get it. Like, it's just not every day that someone can say that they beat the Elite Four with mostly just Route 1 normal types. But when it comes to beating Pokemon with only using Tackle, these Pokemon are truly unsung heroes. Especially Tackle Susan, who was with us from basically the very beginning, and was, without a doubt, the MVP of this run. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a really fun project that had a whole lot of hard work put into it, so I'd really appreciate it for everyone that goes and tackles that subscribe button.